Okay, here's the translation of block 1 of 7, staying faithful to the original content, format, and punctuation. I was sitting alone on that white plastic chair, leaning against the kitchen wall, watching through the glass door as the whole party unfolded without me. Laughter echoed from the garden decorated with gold and pink balloons, the table overflowing with fancy sweets that I myself had ordered and paid for, and there was my daughter-in-law, Camila, posing for yet another photo with my son, Raphael, and my granddaughter, Sophia, who was only 3 years old. The same granddaughter I took care of every day while Camila went to the gym, to the salon, to endless lunches with her friends. My eyes burned, but I wouldn't allow the tears to fall. Not there, not at that moment. That's when I heard her voice, sweet and venomous like spoiled honey, explaining to the professional photographer she had hired with the money I'd given her for the party. The mother-in-law won't be appearing in the main photos. She doesn't fit the aesthetic I'm going for on Instagram. You know how it is, right? She's kind of outdated. In that instant, at 62 years old, after a lifetime dedicated to my family, I understood what it was like to feel completely invisible within my own story. What Camila didn't know was that I had heard every word. What she couldn't imagine was that this moment of humiliation would be the last in which I would allow myself to be treated like an old and inconvenient piece of furniture in their lives. But to understand how I got to that garden, sitting alone while they celebrated my only granddaughter's birthday without me, you have to go back in time. You need to understand who I really was before becoming the mother-in-law who didn't match the photos. My name is Helena. I was born and raised in a humble family in the countryside, where I learned early on the meaning of the words work and sacrifice. My mother was a seamstress, and my father a bricklayer. They never had much, but they gave me everything they could: education, values, and the certainty that a woman needed to be strong and independent. At 18, I came to the big city with a cardboard suitcase and a dream of going to college for education. I worked during the day as a secretary and studied at night for 5 consecutive years. I met my husband, Alberto, at a bus stop during a torrential downpour. He offered me half of his umbrella and half of his heart too. We married 2 years later in a simple ceremony, but full of true love. Raphael was born 3 years after our wedding. I remember holding that pink baby in my arms and making a silent promise: my son would have all the opportunities that I had to fight so hard to achieve, and I fulfilled that promise with every fiber of my being. I worked double shifts when Alberto lost his job during the economic crisis. I made sweets and savories for parties on weekends when Raphael's private school tuition started to pinch. I saved on clothes, on outings, on everything that was for me, but never ever did I let my son go without anything. Alberto passed away when Raphael was only 17 years old. A sudden heart attack that left me widowed and completely lost. But there was no time to get lost. There was a young man who needed to finish high school, take the college entrance exam, have a future, so I swallowed the pain, put on the armor of a warrior mother, and moved forward. Raphael entered the administration college. He graduated with honors. He got an excellent job at a multinational company. I was so proud that I felt my chest explode every time I saw him in a suit, leaving for work. It was at work that he met Camila. She was an intern in the marketing department, 6 years younger than Raphael, the daughter of an upper-middle-class family who always had everything in their hands without having to stretch out their arms. Beautiful, it's true. Perfectly brushed blonde hair, always done nails, designer clothes, toothpaste commercial smile. When Raphael introduced me to her, I felt something strange in my stomach, a feminine intuition that I learned to recognize over the years. But I wanted to believe that I was wrong. I wanted to believe that my son had chosen a good woman to share his life with. The first signs that I wasn't welcome started subtly. Camila always had an excuse for not attending our Sunday lunches: headache, unavoidable commitment, extreme fatigue. When she did come, she spent the whole time on her cell phone, photographing the food before eating, complaining about the seasoning, comparing my simple dishes with the fancy restaurants she frequented. Raphael laughed, finding it funny, saying it was a young person's thing. I bit my tongue and served another piece of cake. The wedding was a megalomaniacal event that cost more than I earned in 2 years of work. Camila made a point of planning every detail, always making it clear that she had a standard to maintain and that she couldn't just do anything. Raphael asked for my financial help. How could I deny it? It was my son's happiness. I sold the car I had bought with so much sacrifice. I borrowed money from a friend. I contributed almost half of the party's costs. At the ceremony, I was placed at a table in the corner of the room, far from the main table. Camila explained to the guests that the decoration looked more harmonious that way. I smiled and pretended everything was fine. Sophia was born a year after the wedding. When I held my granddaughter for the first time, I felt that everything had been worth it. That perfect little face, those curious eyes, that new baby smell. I promised her, in silence, the same thing I had promised Raphael. I would be her fortress, her protection, her unconditional love. And in the first months, Camila even seemed grateful for my presence. I took care of Sophia, while she recovered, cooked for them, cleaned the house, did the shopping. But as soon as Camila recovered, things changed. She started using me as a convenient babysitter. She would call at the last minute, saying she needed to go out, that she had an important appointment, that I could stay with Sophia, and I stayed. I always stayed, because it wasn't about Camila, it was about my granddaughter. It was about that child, who brightened my days with her toothless smile, and her chubby little arms, asking for a hug. I took her to the park, played with her for hours, taught her songs, told her stories. Sophia loved me, and I loved Sophia with an intensity that hurt because it was so beautiful. But Camila never acknowledged that. For her, I was the free maid, the convenience that solved her problems while she dedicated herself to building her personal brand on social media. Yes, Camila had become a digital influencer. She posted perfect photos of her perfect life, with her perfect husband and her perfect daughter. Thousands of people followed her, liked, commented. She made money with advertising, with partnerships, with the illusion of perfection that she sold daily. And in this manufactured perfect life, there was no room for a 62-year-old mother-in-law, with wrinkles around her eyes and gray hair that she insisted I should dye. The humiliations became more frequent and more obvious. Camila asked me not to wear certain clothes when I went to pick her up at events. She suggested that I get a basic facelift to renew my appearance. She commented, always in front of other people, that I was from that time, when women let themselves age. Raphael was blind, or maybe just too cowardly to face his wife. He laughed at her jokes, changed the subject when I tried to talk seriously, asked me to not take it personally. That's how I got to Sophia's third birthday. I had insisted on helping with the party. I transferred money to their account, suggested ideas, offered my house as an alternative. Camila accepted the money, of course, but she planned everything alone, or rather, with her team of event consultants that she had hired to make the party Instagrammable. When I arrived, an hour before the guests, to help with the final preparations, Camila greeted me with a tense smile. "Helena, I'm glad you arrived early," she said, using that fake tone that I knew so well. "I need to talk to you about something. The photographer I hired is going to do full coverage of the party, and I put together a very specific mood board for the photos. You know, pastel colors, clean aesthetic, that magazine vibe. So I was thinking, it would be better if you stayed more behind the scenes during the main photos. You understand, right? It's just that you don't really match the color palette I chose. Your clothes are too dark, heavy, and we want everything to be light and harmonious." I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. There I was, wearing the navy blue dress I had bought especially for the occasion, my hair done at the salon in the morning, excited to celebrate my granddaughter. And she was telling me, in no uncertain terms, that I wasn't aesthetically appropriate to appear in the photographs of my own granddaughter. "Camila, it's my granddaughter's birthday," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'm her grandmother. Can't I be in the photos?" She sighed, as if she were dealing with a stubborn child. "It's not that you can't appear, Helena. It's just in the main photos, in the family photos, with the cake, those things. You can appear in some more casual photos, in the background, you know. But the photos I'm going to post, the professional photos, need to have a certain visual coherence. My followers expect a standard. It's a professional matter. It's nothing personal, nothing personal." As if excluding a grandmother from her own granddaughter's birthday couldn't be personal. But I didn't answer. I simply nodded, turned my back, and went inside the house. That's when I sat down in that white chair in the kitchen and watched, through the glass, the party start without me. If you are following this story, yeah. Un escándalo. Eu estou apenas retomando o controle da minha vida. Niebe. Yeah. And she is touching your heart. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to continue receiving real stories like this. Your support makes all the difference. I saw the guests arriving, fathers and mothers, with their children dressed up nicely. Camila's friends, all young, beautiful, smiling. Raphael circulating among the people, all proud, holding Sophia in his arms. And Camila, the perfect hostess, posing for every photo, adjusting every detail, smiling that magazine cover smile. No one seemed to notice my absence, or if they noticed, they didn't care. I was just the mother-in-law, the old one, the one who didn't fit in the photos. It was at that moment that my cell phone vibrated. A message from Beatrice, my best friend since college. She was a lawyer, successful, and had always encouraged me not to accept disrespect from anyone. Helena, I called your house, and you didn't answer. I got that information you asked me for last week. Call me when you can. It's important. I had asked Beatrice to investigate something that had been bothering me for months. Raphael and Camila had bought a new apartment, much bigger and more expensive than the previous one. When I asked Raphael how they had managed it, he said it had been an excellent negotiation and a loan with special conditions. But something didn't add up. I knew my son's salary. I knew how much Camila earned with her social media. The numbers didn't match. And there was something else. Raphael had asked me, 3 months before, to sign as a guarantor on a bank document. He said it was standard procedure, that I didn't need to worry. I trusted him. I signed. After all, he was my son. But that feminine intuition, the one that had alerted me at the first meeting with Camila, began to scream louder and louder. I asked Beatrice to check if anything was wrong, and from her message, there was. I discreetly left the kitchen, crossed the house, and went to the guest room upstairs. I called Beatrice. Helena, sit down before I speak, she began, with a serious voice. I got access to the bank documents through a contact. Helena, your son used your name to guarantee a loan of 400,000 Rie. You are not only a guarantor, you are a joint and several co-debtor. If they don't pay, the debt is yours. Legally, it's as if you took out the loan with them. My world spun. 400,000 Ries. A debt I could never repay. My entire retirement wouldn't cover even the interest. But Raphael told me it was just a formality. I whispered, feeling my legs weak. It's not a formality at all, Helena. And there's more. From what I could find out, they are behind on their payments. The bank has already started the collection process. You will start receiving notifications soon. They used the money to buy the apartment, furnish it, make renovations, and they are spending everything they earn to maintain their standard of living. They are not able to pay the loan. I hung up the phone with trembling hands. 400,000 Ries in debt. My name tarnished. My retirement compromised. And all this while I was excluded from the photos, because I didn't match the aesthetic. While I took care of their daughter for free. While I gave money for expensive parties. While I sacrificed myself. Once again, as I had done my whole life. But this time it would be different. This time I wouldn't swallow it in silence. I went down the stairs with firm steps. I crossed the room. I opened the glass door that led to the garden. And I walked towards the center of the party, where Camila was posing for another photo, with Sophia, Raphael by her side, all smiling under the perfect light of the late afternoon. Excuse me, my voice came out louder than I intended. People stopped talking. The photographer lowered the camera. Camila looked at me with that expression of someone who had just seen something very inconvenient appear at her perfect party. Helena, now is not the time, she said through her teeth, still smiling to maintain appearances. Now is exactly the time, I replied, positioning myself in front of her. I took Sophia from Raphael's arms. My granddaughter smiled at me, reaching out her little arms. My heart ached with love. You two need to explain something to me, now. In front of everyone. Raphael turned pale. Mom, what are you talking about? I'm talking about 400,000 Ries, Raphael. I'm talking about the debt you made in my name. I'm talking about how you used my trust, my signature, my name, to support a standard of living you can't afford, while treating me like a maid, like an old piece of furniture that doesn't match the photos. The silence that settled in the garden was deafening. All the guests were looking at us. Camila turned red. not with shame, but with anger at having her farce exposed. "You're making a scene at your granddaughter's party," she hissed. "No," I replied, remaining calm, holding Sophia firmly. "You were making a scene. I'm just taking back control of my life." Turned as I walked out. "I left behind a scandal with my life. You used me, you manipulated me, you excluded me, and you did it while I gave you everything I had. While I took care of Sophia, as if she were my own daughter. While I financed your expensive parties, and your lives of lies." Raphael tried to approach. "Mom, I can explain. It was a misunderstanding. I was going to tell you but what, Raphael?" My voice trembled, but not from fear. It was indignation. It was pain. It was the strength of someone who had finally decided not to accept it anymore. "But did you think I was too stupid to notice that I would continue to be the family cash cow without questioning? That I would agree to be excluded from photos of my own granddaughter because I'm not aesthetically pleasing enough for your wife's Instagram?" Camila stepped forward, trying to take Sophia back. "Give me back my daughter." "Sophia is my granddaughter," I replied, stepping back. "And you're going to listen to me. You're going to hear everything I have to say, because I deserved at least respect. I deserved honesty. I deserved to be treated as part of this family, not as an inconvenient accessory that is only useful when needed." One of the guests, a man I didn't know, cleared his throat. "Maybe it's better if you resolve this in private." "No," I said firmly, "because in private I have always been silenced. In private I have always swallowed frogs and pretended everything was fine. But everything is not fine. And these people here, these followers you so desperately want to impress, these friends you cultivate with such dedication, deserve to know who you really are." Camila completely lost her composure. "You're ruining your granddaughter's birthday. You're being selfish, dramatic, pathetic." "I'm being honest," I replied. "Something you don't know what it is. You build a life of lies for the internet. You sell a false perfection. You use the people around you as disposable objects. And Raphael, my son that I raised alone after your father died, that I sacrificed everything to give education and opportunities. You have become her accomplice. You allowed her to treat me like this. You used me financially and discarded me emotionally." The tears finally fell, not from weakness, but from liberation. I have spent 62 years of my life being strong for others, strong for my parents, strong for my husband, strong for you, Raphael, strong for this granddaughter that I love more than anything. But no one ever asked if I was okay, if I was tired, if I needed support. I was always the rock, the foundation, the guarantee, and you used that against me. Raphael was crying too now. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were feeling like this." "You didn't know because you didn't want to see," I replied. "Because it was more convenient to have a mother who solved all the problems, who gave money when you needed it, who took care of Sophia for free, who didn't complain about anything. But I am a person, Raphael. I have feelings, I have limits, and you have crossed all of them." Camila had her cell phone in her hand, probably wanting to record, to turn this into content. I turned to her. "You can record. You can post. You can tell your followers how the annoying mother-in-law ruined the perfect party, but also tell them how you used me, how you excluded me, how you treated me like garbage. Tell the whole truth, or tell nothing at all." The professional photographer, a woman in her 40s who had observed everything in silence, completely lowered her camera and said, quietly but clearly, "I have been a photographer for 15 years. I have photographed hundreds of birthday parties, and you know what is the most beautiful photo I always take? It's the one of the grandparents with the grandchildren, because that's where you see true love. Love that doesn't need a filter, a pose, or editing. You should be ashamed." She looked at Camila. "Ashamed to treat someone like this, who clearly loves your daughter more than you can pretend to love in your photos." Several guests began to murmur. Some nodded in agreement. Camila was destroyed, not by guilt, but by having her public image ruined. Raphael was paralyzed, divided between his wife and his mother. I looked at Sophia, who watched me with those big confused eyes. I kissed her forehead. "Grandma loves you very much, my love. Never forget that." And I gave her back to Raphael. "I'm leaving now," I announced, "and I'm going to resolve the loan situation. I'm going to the bank on Monday with my lawyer. I'm going to do everything in my power to protect my name and my life. You will have to deal with the consequences of your choices. As for the rest, You will need to decide what kind of people you want to be. If you want to continue living this life of appearances, exploiting those who love you, or if you want to build something real. I crossed the decorated garden, past the dessert table that I had paid for, the balloons that I had financed, the guests who turned as I walked out, and were looking at me with pity or admiration. I grabbed my purse from the kitchen and went out the front door. In the days that followed, a lot happened. Beatrice helped me sue Raphael and Camila for fraud. We managed to prove that I had been deceived about the nature of the document I signed. The bank, pressured by the legal evidence and the bad publicity of the case, agreed to remove my name as co-debtor, transferring all responsibility to Raphael and Camila. They would have to sell the expensive apartment, drastically reduce their standard of living, and deal with the consequences of their choices. Camila lost thousands of followers when the story leaked. Someone from the party had recorded part of the confrontation and posted it online. The comments were relentless. The brands that partnered with her began to distance themselves. Her perfect life of lies crumbled like a house of cards. Raphael called me countless times in the first few weeks. I didn't answer. I needed time. I needed to process the betrayal, the pain, the grief of having lost the image I had of my son. He wasn't the man I thought I had raised. Or maybe he was, and I just never wanted to see his flaws. After 2 months, I agreed to meet him. It was in a small cafe, away from prying eyes. Raphael was different, thinner, more tired, less arrogant. "Mom, I screwed everything up," were his first words. "I was an idiot. I was a horrible son, and you didn't deserve anything we did to you." I took a sip of coffee, watching him. "Why, Raphael? Why did you let things get to this point?" He ran his hands over his face. "Because it was easier. Easier to let Camila treat you badly than to confront her. Easier to use your name on the loan than to admit we couldn't afford that apartment. Easier to have you as collateral than to grow up and take responsibility. I've been hiding behind you my whole life, Mom. And when you finally said enough, my world crumbled." "And Camila?" I asked. "She's in therapy. We both are. We sold the apartment. We moved back to a smaller place, more suited to our reality. She stopped with the Instagram obsession, at least reduced it a lot. We are trying to rebuild our family on more honest foundations." He looked me in the eyes. "But I know none of this is an excuse. I hurt you. I used you. I disrespected you. And I understand if you can never forgive me." Forgive, that word weighed tons. "Raphael, I love you. You are my son, and that doesn't change. But loving doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It doesn't mean allowing my kindness to be used as a weakness. I can forgive you, and I will, with time. But things will never be the same again. You broke my trust, and trust is like a porcelain vase. You can glue the pieces back together, but the cracks will always be there." He nodded, his eyes watering. "And Sophia, don't you want to see Sophia?" My heart squeezed. "I want to see my granddaughter, but on my terms, when I feel ready, and with clear rules about respect and boundaries." Today, 6 months after that traumatic birthday, I am in a different place, a place I never imagined I would be at 62. I'm learning to put myself first. I started therapy. I enrolled in a painting course I always wanted to take. I traveled to the beach alone, and spent a week reading books and walking on the sand. I met new people, made true friends, people who value me for who I am, not for what I can offer. Raphael and I are slowly rebuilding our relationship. He comes to visit me once a week, alone, and we talk. We talk for real, without masks. Camila apologized to me, eventually. I don't know if it was sincere or just strategic, but I accepted the apology. Not for her, but for me. Because holding a grudge is like drinking poison hoping the other person dies. I went back to see Sophia a month ago. At first it was strange, but she ran to me as she always did, hugged me with all the strength of her little arms and said, "Grandma, you disappeared. I missed you." And at that moment I felt that yes, it was possible to rebuild. It was possible to love my granddaughter without erasing myself. It was possible to be a grandmother without being a doormat. The lesson I learned, and that I want to share with every person who goes through similar situations, is that kindness is not synonymous with weakness. Generosity does not mean allowing abuse. Love does not require self-destruction. For decades,
I confused these things. I thought being a good mother meant sacrificing myself until there was nothing left of me. I thought loving my son meant accepting any treatment. I thought being strong meant swallowing humiliations in silence. But I was wrong. Being strong is knowing how to say no. It is setting boundaries. It is choosing your own dignity, even when it hurts people you love. It is understanding that you cannot save anyone if you are sinking yourself. Okay, here's the translation of Block 6 of 7, followed by the cultural adaptation suggestions. If you're reading this and identify with my story, if you're also that person who gives until there's nothing left, who accepts disrespect because you love too much, who disappears because you're afraid of disappointing, I want to tell you, you deserve more. You deserve to be treated with dignity. You deserve to have your boundaries respected. You deserve love that doesn't hurt, that doesn't humiliate, that doesn't destroy. And when someone says that you don't fit with their photos, with their plans, with their life, be thankful. Because they're doing you a favor. They're showing you that you don't belong there. And that's not about you not being good enough. It's about you being too good to settle for so little. Life isn't over at 62. In fact, in many ways, it's just beginning. I'm learning to live for myself, not through others. I'm discovering that loneliness and solitude are different things. Loneliness hurts. Solitude heals. I'm finding peace in not needing to prove anything to anyone. I'm free from the prison of needing to be perfect, useful, convenient. And you know what else? I am enough, exactly as I am, with my wrinkles, my gray hair, my 62-year-old body, my opinions that don't align with the younger generation, my values that seem outdated to some. I am enough. And anyone who can't see that, who can't value me for who I am, simply doesn't deserve space in my life. That birthday was the worst and best day of my life. The worst because it exposed all the wounds I had been accumulating in silence. The best because it freed me. Because it forced me to wake up from a dream that had become a nightmare. Because it gave me the courage to rewrite my story. And now when I look back at that woman sitting alone in the white kitchen chair, watching the party happen without her, I feel compassion. Compassion for everything she endured, pride for the courage she found, and gratitude for the silent revolution she started that day. Because in the end, I discovered that I don't need to fit in anyone's photos. I need to fit in with myself. And that finally, I can do. Every day, a little more, I recognize myself in the mirror, and I smile. Because the woman who looks back at me isn't perfect, isn't young, isn't aesthetically suitable for Instagram, but she's real, she's strong, she's worthy, and she's free. And freedom, I discovered, is the most beautiful photo there is.